1. What is the primary goal of adult learning principles? A. To focus solely on the acquisition of knowledge. B. To promote learner centered education. C. To reduce the complexity of learning tasks. D. To increase the speed of learning. 2. Which evaluation method is most appropriate for measuring a learner's long term retention of information? A. Formative assessment. B. Summative assessment. C. Diagnostic assessment. D. Performance based assessment. 3. In the context of curriculum development, which of the following is a key factor to consider when designing instruction for adult learners? A. Learners' personal experiences. B. Learners' ability to memorize facts. C. Age-specific learning strategies. D. Strict adherence to theoretical models. 4. What is the most effective communication method when delivering complex psychological content to adult learners? Use of multimedia presentations without interaction. B. Providing learners with detailed written handouts. C. Encouraging collaborative discussions and critical thinking. D. Lecturing for long periods without interruption. 5. Which of the following best represents the concept of regulatory compliance in adult learning environments? A. Ensuring learners are engaged throughout the course. B. Adhering to laws and standards for education and assessment. C. Maximizing learner participation in discussions. D. Encouraging personal opinions during class. 6. In mentoring techniques, what is the most important aspect of building rapport with adult learners? A. Understanding and acknowledging their prior knowledge and experiences. B. Providing continuous feedback without considering their preferences. C. Ignoring learners' emotional responses to the content. Focusing exclusively on task completion rather than interpersonal relationships. 7. Which of the following is an example of formative assessment in adult learning? A. A final exam that tests learners on everything they've learned. B. An ongoing quiz that assesses understanding after each lesson. C. A peer review of a final paper. D. A standardized test given at the end of the course. 8. What is a primary challenge in curriculum development for adult learners? A. Ignoring prior experiences and knowledge. Aligning content with learners' work or life experiences. C. Focusing solely on theoretical content. D. Reducing the duration of the course. 9. How can an instructor best support adult learners' motivation in a psychological practice test course? A. By providing a lecture-based approach with no interaction. B. By connecting course content to real-life scenarios and practical applications. C. By limiting feedback and focusing only on content delivery. D. By ignoring the learner's interests and backgrounds. 10. Which of the following is most important when mentoring adult learners in psychology? A. Consistently providing instructional materials without any flexibility. B. Creating a non-judgmental space for learners to express thoughts and concerns. C. Limiting learners' opportunities for independent thought. D. Focusing entirely on the theoretical concepts without practical examples. 11. In adult education, what is the significance of self-directed learning? A. Learners are passive recipients of knowledge. B. Learners are responsible for setting their learning goals and monitoring their progress. C. Teachers determine all learning goals for the learners. D. Learners should rely completely on the instructor for guidance. 12. When assessing learners in psychology, what should an instructor primarily focus on? A. Memorization of specific psychological theories. B. Understanding and application of psychological concepts to real-life situations. C. Strict adherence to a textbook approach. Simple recall of facts without deeper analysis. 13. Which learning style is often most effective for adult learners in psychological courses? A. Visual learning through diagrams and charts. B. Auditory learning through lectures and discussions. C. Kinesthetic learning through hands-on activities. D. All of the above, depending on the learner's preference. 14. What is the most effective method of providing feedback to adult learners? A. Giving vague feedback to avoid hurting the learner's feelings. B. Providing clear, specific, and constructive feedback focused on improvement. C. Providing feedback only at the end of the course. D. Focusing on general praise without specifics. 15. Which type of assessment allows adult learners to demonstrate their applied skills in a real-world context? A. Summative assessment. B. Formative assessment. C. Performance-based assessment. D. Diagnostic assessment. 16. How does the principle of active learning benefit adult learners in psychology? A. It allows learners to passively receive information without engaging. B. It encourages learners to interact with and apply knowledge in a meaningful way. C. It emphasizes the memorization of textbook definitions. D. It limits the amount of content delivered to learners. 17. What is a critical aspect of developing a psychologically sound curriculum for adult learners? A. Focusing on one-size-fits-all content. B. Tailoring content to diverse learners' needs and backgrounds. C. Ignoring learners' preferences and backgrounds. D. Reducing interaction to avoid distractions. 18. Which is the best approach for encouraging adult learners to engage in psychological practice test preparation? A. Assigning lengthy readings without explanations. B. Offering group discussions and practice tests to reinforce concepts. C. Avoiding hands-on activities to prevent distractions. D. Limiting feedback on practice tests to encourage self-learning. 19. How can instructors foster critical thinking in adult learners studying psychology? A. By encouraging learners to accept information without questioning. B. By guiding learners to analyze and evaluate psychological theories and research. C. By focusing solely on rote memorization. D. By discouraging debates and differing viewpoints. 20. What role does learner feedback play in evaluating psychological course effectiveness? A. Feedback is unnecessary for assessing the quality of a course. B. Feedback helps instructors understand learners' challenges and areas of improvement. C. Feedback is irrelevant as long as content is delivered correctly. D. Feedback should be ignored to prevent learner distractions. 21. What is the best way to design psychology tests for adult learners? A. Use abstract, theoretical questions that are disconnected from real-world applications. B. Focus solely on questions that test recall of facts. C. Incorporate questions that encourage application, analysis, and real-world relevance. D. Only include multiple-choice questions for ease of grading. 22. How does social interaction in adult learning environments benefit psychological learning? A. It fosters collaboration, idea sharing, and deeper understanding of concepts. B. It distracts learners from the material and slows down progress. C. It has no impact on psychological learning. D. It only benefits learners who are extroverted. 23. What is a primary characteristic of effective adult learning in psychological practice? A. Passive listening to lectures. B. Active engagement with content and peers. C. Strict adherence to theoretical approaches without application. D. Isolated learning with no collaboration or feedback. 24. Which mentoring technique is most beneficial for adult learners in psychology? A. Telling learners what to do without asking for their input. B. Encouraging reflection and self-assessment. C. Avoiding difficult conversations to keep learners comfortable. Ignoring learners' questions to maintain focus on the curriculum. 25. In adult education, what is the purpose of diagnostic assessments? A. To test learners' overall knowledge at the end of a course. B. To identify learners' strengths and weaknesses before starting instruction. C. To evaluate the effectiveness of the curriculum after the course. D. To measure the speed at which learners finish a course. 26. What is the role of experiential learning in adult psychological education? A. It emphasizes theoretical knowledge over practical application. B. It focuses on learning through hands-on experiences and real-life applications. C. It excludes any form of interaction with peers or instructors. D. It limits learners to textbooks and readings. 27. Which communication method is best for managing diverse adult learners in psychology? A. Using one-way communication through lectures. B. Encouraging active listening and open dialogue with all learners. C. Limiting feedback to one-on-one sessions only. D. Relying solely on written communication. 28. What is a key benefit of using case studies in adult psychology courses? A. They allow learners to focus solely on memorization. They enable learners to apply theory to real-world scenarios and problems. C. They are time-consuming and rarely effective. D. They discourage learners from thinking critically. 29. How can instructors address challenges in managing adult learners' time in psychology courses? A. By providing rigid schedules with little room for flexibility. B. By offering clear expectations and flexible deadlines. C. By limiting time for discussions and group activities. D. By removing any deadlines and allowing learners to work at their own pace. 30. What is the role of emotional intelligence in adult learning environments? A. It is not relevant to learning or course success. B. It helps learners navigate social interactions and manage emotions in learning contexts. C. It only benefits learners in non-psychological courses. D. It should be ignored to focus entirely on cognitive skills.